Welcome to Rough Cut, where we forward through sound.
What's happening all around.
This is MJs Carlo, coming with you through the lows and through the highs.
And this is MJs Danni, the kid from Cubao, where all roads lead to.
And joining us today is a very special guest. It's a bit of a surprise, so you'll find out about that momentarily.
So, I just like to ask, how fast has college life has been for you right now?
It's really been a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. Like, I started college when it was online, so the first 2 years were like a literal snap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm gonna graduate in 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
How are you?
It's been a while. Like, I've been in a lot of downs and ups. No, but then like it felt like I've been delayed for like 2 years and I've gone through 2 different kinds of schools. So it feels very slow in a way. But then at the same time, suddenly I'm going to graduate. Suddenly I'm in theses. And then starting up from there, I was like, oh my God, I'm almost in the finish line of my college life. So yeah.
I know we say it's the finish line a lot, but let's be real. This is kind of the starting line of being an adult or being, in the real world. So before we go on to the whole being in the workforce or anything like that, let's look back a little bit on college life.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, all right. When you went from high school, because we're talking about transitions here, right?
Yes.
When you went from high school to college, how'd you feel?
Actually, high school just felt like I was just free-flowing. Like, I was just going with the flow. I didn't really think about it that much, especially during my last year of high school. Like, I was just thinking that, like, oh, I'm probably going to the colleges that I'm going to go. Whether or not that I pass, I'll just do whatever I can to actually just go to UP. Because it was my dream school. Like, I really wanted to wear the sablay and all. And right now, I'm still here. But then I started questioning myself, like, why am I here in the first place? And then at the same time, people started questioning, like, it's not going to be the same when you're actually going to graduate. It's going to be a whole new world for you. And that actually terrifies me. So I've been getting a lot of anxiety about that right now. How about you?
It's kind of weird because when I went from high school to college, like I said, it was online. So I didn't make any friends until like the end of my freshie year, which is weird because freshie year you make all of these like cliques with your blocks, and this is where you make all of your like first friends. I made my first friend December of 2020, which was the tail end of the application process to MFM. So it was not normal, but I guess I was still a workaholic, so I stayed pretty much the same there. But I just turned into a bit of a hermit.
I mean, like, hermit-wise, like, how do I say this? You were in the pandemic, so it's actually just, like, it's understandable. But then, for me, in my first 2 years of my college life, I was actually just a lone wolf. Because I really didn't know what to do and I couldn't, like, vibe with people. It was actually during the pandemic that I just started yapping. Just started going like, oh, okay, I'll just try to take org life. Oh, okay, I'll try to go to other places instead of college. And it actually helped me, like, stay sane. So I was just wondering, like, how would that entail, especially after college now?
I think there's always some kind of transition when it comes to B2B. For example, one of my like first, I'd say 5, maybe 7 friends. One of them was actually our guest here, so I'm just going to introduce him really quick. It's our lovely advisor. I was asked not to say esteemed because it made him feel old. It's Sir Jco Igdanes. So, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm feeling old. I'm just kidding. Yeah, funny that you mentioned it, Carlo, because I do remember you applying, and then you were a little bit of a hermit in the beginning. In my head, Carlo was just this guy na lagi naka-landscape yung camera. I think I just remember that, and there were like the camera was always angled from above. Like I remember that vividly, because Carlo was one of the applicants that I was able to talk to while on Discord. Like the Discord days. Like, do people still use Discord now?
Yes, we do. We
Yes.
still
Like,
have
a lot.
Discord
A lot.
tambayan.
Because it feels like a relic of 2020, 2021 at this point. I haven't used it, honestly, in quite some time. I still go offline sometimes, or online sometimes.
yeah, it's kind of awkward there, but like, anyway, we kind of moved a bit toward Discord, but yeah, so we had a lot of experiences, pandemic, and more recently face-to-face. So I think we've all had that college moment where you're like, wow, I'm in college. Like, this is the moment I realized I'm not the same as I was in high school. I'm different. I'm doing things I would have never done 2 3 years ago. So like, for me, that moment was actually last year when I went to Laguna with the old Exicom, and I would have never just gone on a random day trip with friends in high school because my mom would have gotten ballistic for one thing. And for another thing, I never had any friends outside of Metro Manila, which is a very UP thing where like you meet a lot of people from different places. And it was such a stereotypical college coming of age moment. We were outside in a parking lot having a picnic behind one of my friends' cars, and we were eating Jollibee. I was like, wow, I'm in college. I've never talked to these people before, but suddenly they're like some of my best friends. So we all have that like it moment.
Yeah, the it moment. Actually, when I had that moment, it was actually during my app process in Maroon FM, wherein like the first time I had to meet my buddy was actually in pop-up, and we had to do all of our buddy tasks together. And then in the end, I was like meeting with all of the other mems in Maroon FM, and then like right after we just went to pop-up, we all went straight to like my buddy's apartment, and then we just stayed there. Sadly, I had to go at 3 a.m. in the morning. And then they were just like having sentimental talks or like just random like yapping until like 5 or 6.
Yeah, I guess, pop-up is kind of like a hallmark for a lot of UP students because honestly, even at like the 3 a.m. thing, it screams college because like no high school student with parental guidance would be allowed to stay out like till like past 12.
Maybe one at most.
Maybe. That's probably a you thing because my mom would have gone crazy even if I just went home past 10 in high school.
I mean, I had to make tacos a lot.
Right.
Being out until like 3 to 6 a.m., even just going out with friends for like the stupidest reasons, is one of the most college things ever. It's one of those go do stupid college things, have fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I think pop-up is just so convenient because for those who aren't familiar, pop-up it's not exactly a bar. It's more like a food park, but there are some bars.
It's like a food park, but 80% of the food there is alcohol.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys noticed, like the past couple of months, a lot of the long-time bars in pop-up have gone, like they're gone.
They're gone?
They're gone. Like if you guys know Santay, the one with the karaoke place,
Yeah.
it's a Pilates and indoor cycling studio now.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're starting to outlive pop-up. Pop-up is decomposing.
Yeah,
and we're still here.
We're still here in college right now.
Oh,
Even
no.
Jco.
I think this is the part where the adults feel that they're older than they really are again. Maybe we can talk about that later. But I guess pop-up it's kind of like a cornerstone of those years, 2019, 2018 even, to like 2023. It's like a hallmark of those years.
Yeah, so pop-up is kind of like the goody-goody, funny time. But like, there's also the, wow, I can't believe I'm getting old kind of thing. Where you start to realize, if I was still in high school, I think I would have more fun right now. Or if I was still in high school, I think I would be like with my friends. But sometimes in college, you just start to realize, wow, it's kind of lame. It also kind of sucks.
It's actually kind of, a lot of young people are actually in pop-up right now. To the point where it's like, am I actually having fun? And then you realize you would rather sleep than actually go outside at this point.
Right? And the sleep thing, like, I feel like we can all attest to this. Sleeping before 12 a.m. is the greatest blessing I can have in a day because I can wake up and not feel every joint in my body aching. Like, I'm not sure if I'm just old, but like, if I get 7 hours of sleep, I feel a lot better than like 6.
So you were in pop-up a lot in high school, Carlo?
So I was in pop-up a lot when I was in high school. But when I honestly started going less in college. And the only times I started going to pop-up in college was for org work. And org work was probably the biggest culture shock I ever had from going from high school to college. So for context, in high school, I was in a theater org. And we would meet like, once a week for like 2-3 hours. And I was like pushing it. I was like a more active worker. 2-3 hours, I would work on prod stuff. And then I would go home. In college, it was, so for this application process, we have 4 months. You have to collect 50, 60 SIGs. Got to complete 70 Bambay hours. And this was all online. You have to do all of these tasks with your batch. Yeah. And I was like, wow, I'm not getting it.
Yeah, I get that. But I think what Carlo is saying is kind of unique because he started college in the pandemic, right?
Yeah, in the pandemic.
Yeah. For context, I started mine before the pandemic. I was one of the batches that I got my school year cut in half because the world was like crumbling in the middle of the second semester. And I hate to sound like that guy, but the online app processes were a tamer version of what was happening pre-pandemic. This is not Maroon FM, but I was applying for 2 orgs before MFM. And yung 70, 60 SIGs, I had an org that there were like 100, 150 SIGs. And I had to know them one by one. That was how bad it was in the like pre-pandemic days. And then
By name,
and then they wouldn't just give you their signature right away. You'd have to do tasks for nearly all of them. I remember having to do the fan chant for BTS just to get somebody's signature. And I'm not a K-pop fan. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a different beast pre-pandemic and then pandemic days for college culture, I guess.
Org culture in UP is actually very intense compared
it
to
is.
many other schools. I was just wondering because like we are also talking about like the pandemic and how that's how our college life was. It was actually still hard outside of college life. Like imagine of all of the responsibilities, the added responsibilities we actually had to do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think the pandemic was kind of a wake-up call for a lot that we were doing too much. Obviously, it's something that I would have preferred not to have happened. But it kind of reminded people that college students are also just, at the end of the day, teens who are easing into a new stage in their life. And you have to account for their other responsibilities outside of academics or even org work. You had to account for if they were taking care of their younger siblings, if they were working. And that's something that facilitated the shift to a tamer culture in UP that I feel like we're seeing now.
It was actually really hard for me during the pandemic because I actually had to start working.
Yeah, I see. How was that like for you? I did gigs. I did freelancing stuff, but I didn't have an actual job.
Yeah. Usually what I did is that I was doing virtual assistant work as much as possible. And I was so miserable because it was usually at night shift hours, usually at US hours. So at that point, I had to like stay up the whole night just be able to be paid for pennies. But at least I was being paid just to at least have some like income that
Right.
I don't need to get from my other parents because I didn't want to burden them already. Like it was like a really hard time during that time. And then because of that, I actually had to be an LOA just to be able to actually like go through like trying to do freelance, trying to do some commissions, trying to do some extra rackets in between. And it actually helped me with my mental health, just like being an LOA, because school is like a big part of my anxiety. A part of my anxiety in a way that like I realize if I graduate, I will be in another world where people keep telling me, keeping on telling me that it's gonna be way worse than college. And I don't like that. I don't like that people would always pressure me that way. Like, why is it like that?
Yeah, like when you do your internships or like you do your like working as a student thing, you always hear like, yeah, this is like a preview to like the miserable life you're gonna have in a couple of years. And I'm just like, dude, like I don't need to hear that right now. Like I know that it's harder and like the real world is scarier, but I'm 20, 21. I'm not gonna deal with this in 2 years. And even when I am gonna deal with this, why are you like sabotaging my entry? I'm gonna end up entering like terrified. I'm not gonna want to do anything.
Yeah.
And it's painting a much more visceral face on being an adult.
Yeah.
Being an adult is scary. Don't get me wrong. I've all of us here are like barely at the starting point, but it's not like you're gonna turn 23 and suddenly money's gonna start falling out of your pockets and some dude's gonna start yanking all of your like hair out. You're not gonna like die of stress or
Yeah.
boredom.
Yeah, I get what you guys are saying, because I think a lot of adults make the mistake of thinking that telling people or telling younger people how scary it is prepares them. In reality, I just think it creates this boomerang effect that, oh, these kids end up not wanting to grow up or end up putting off job applications after college. But to be a contrarian, I get that it's difficult in the sense that you're no longer under your parents' wing. There's a lot of pressure to make income. There's bills. There's taxes. But there are some trade-offs that I think the college version of you would kill for. Like having more control of your time. Because there are a lot of jobs. Now, sure, you clock in at 8, you end at 5. But there are some jobs that you don't have to do tasks, all of that, in that time frame. And then there are also some off days. There are busy seasons. But at the end of the day, you have more control and leeway over your time versus like school where there's a lot of requirements after that. I think that's kind of like a big trade-off for some. Unless you work in certain fields talaga na productivity yung basehan versus like KPIs and whatnot.
Yeah, like one of that's actually most especially with at least org culture in UP. Org culture in UP is super like round the clock. You will be doing org work constantly. And I understand there's like a grind. There's like a grind. It's like I have to get this done before this event. But when I'm getting a message at 12 a.m., it's like, oh, can you like fix this financial sheet or like draft this thing? I'm just like, I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that'll completely stop, but at least people will be a bit more respectful
Yeah.
and start working.
Yeah.
And on the thing of being like scared of like giving out your CV for work, I was scared of even giving out my CV for like internships. Like, okay, so I'll give a bit of context. So when you apply for orgs in UP, you just like you enter the app process and it's like a multi-month thing. There's like a bunch of orientations. Internships are a bit different in that it's kind of like cold calling a lot of people who will never get back to you. So you make your CV. I'm not going to get into that, but you make your CV. You get a bunch of emails, and then you send it basically like begging on your knees. Hi, I swear I can do this. I swear I'm a good fit for
Right.
this job.
Yeah.
And I will learn so much from you. Please do this.
Yeah.
And the bigger the name, the later they're going to reply.
Yes.
And
I get that.
Especially, I'm not going to name any names, but there are some companies that are notorious for
Yeah.
never replying
Yes.
one reply to me 4 months late. I was done with another internship already. So you're going to probably end up at a startup. And you're going to realize that, well, you're going to meet a lot of people who also don't know what they're doing. So internship applications are very touch and go, but also very non-contact because you're never going to meet anyone who touches your CV for the most part. But yeah, so there's a big fear to that because it feels so, oh, it's an adult thing. I'm going to go to the office. But it's not too much different in terms of like doing work. You're going to go there, you're going to talk to people, you're going to arrange stuff, you're going to be sent home with some stuff to do, and you're going to do that repeatedly. Just rinse and repeat. You won't know how to do some of the stuff, for sure. But it's kind of the same. You just learn stuff through trial by fire or maybe osmosis. I don't know which one's more accurate, but I think both are applicable. So,
I just wonder, because like for internships and like academic work, how does that work? Because like I wonder, I've never gone through that yet.
Oh yeah, because so for context, my course has required internships. I just took an extra one, but I took the extra one alongside my classes earlier this semester actually, and it was actually really rough because my internship was a 9 to 5 internship, like straight. It was online, but it was 9 to 5, so I had to be clocked in. I had to attend meetings, I had to respond to queries, I had to do admin work, but I also had classes from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So there was an overlap the entire day. So I would be on my phone in the middle of a class, either taking a meeting or fixing someone's files. And that's where you can kind of feel the distortion of like the two adulthood things, because there's I'm in college adulthood, and then there's the I'm working adulthood. So they both don't respect your time in different kinds of ways. Because for as nice as my advisor was, she was very lenient with the time. She was also very, hi, I need you to fix 10 files like right now or I'm screwed. I was like, okay, got it, I'm in class, but whatever. So it's kind of, you have to juggle everything at the same time, and you're never going to have time. It's going to feel like you never have time, at least.
Yeah. I definitely agree that the internship thing is kind of like a preview for working, but it's also not the same, simply because at least a good internship advisor would know that there's only 100 to 300 hours that you owe them. But some people really like take advantage of that, and I think that's where Carlo's coming from.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be in an internship program that I enjoyed, although it was really astray from what I ended up doing after college. But they were respectful enough of my boundaries, and because at that time there were still strict measures in UP over taking real life or like in-person internships. So I did half of it online, and that was the part graded by my internship professor. But then after that, I still owed the company like 150 hours. So I rendered that hybrid. So I went to their office on the last day, and that was the only point where I actually felt like this could be a real job. Because I think being online, it just feels like an endless grocery list of things you had to do, and it didn't feel like it was building to something. Because I personally, I'm a bigger fan of in-person work than online work, just because I want to see people. Like, I go crazy when I don't see people. So I think that's kind of like the push and pull between the online internships and then the college life aspect of it. But in essence, I feel like this is where also the org stuff came in. I had 5 orgs in college. So I think at that point, I think I had like a vaccine for getting overwork at that point. Na even if there were a couple of tasks from my company, I felt that I could take it head on because I had all of these other organizations that were also eating up my time.
So you couldn't burn out because you were always burnt out, basically.
I guess there was that part of it, but also I had like 2-3 years at that point to ensure that I would stay healthy all throughout the process. So I needed to figure out a way to balance it, because it was either that or you give up all these things. And at the very core of it, I felt like I did enjoy being a member of these orgs. So I had to pace myself properly, and it's a habit I carried over through the internships as well.
So, okay, I'm gonna ask you this because you're the one with 5 orgs with your internship.
Yeah.
Would you recommend the orgs and the internships?
Of course I wouldn't. It was just happenstance for me. I think in what I did in college was I paced kung kailan ako mag-active. So there were semesters that I was only active in 2 or 3. There were semesters I was active in all of them, and I also had to account for my coursework at that time. So if I was taking 15 units, definitely 2 or 3 orgs. If I was taking 18, probably just 1 or 2. But there were semesters that I took only 12 units, so I think those were the semesters I had time for all 5 of them. And it's also good to note that there are certain roles in an org that don't really require you to be there 24/7. And you shouldn't feel guilty for that, because it's not part of your job description in that semester. Yeah. So if you are, for example, in this committee only tasked to do this, you don't have to feel guilty for not showing up to other committee works that don't involve you. So I think that's something people need to hammer into their heads.
Yeah, and I think, okay, in contrast, I would recommend joining orgs. Maybe not like more than 3 if you don't think you can handle it, because it teaches you stuff like that. It teaches you stuff like, oh, it's not my job. Because some people have a hard time like, oh, I should help more because I have the time. But you have to realize, and I realized this personally, and or Jco did too, is that if my job description says, for example, my job description says, I'm the writer for a certain script. I'll write the script, I'll revise it, and then I'll send it. I don't need to be there for when it's delivered. I don't need to be there for when they record it. I'm free to just move on and with my life because I did my job. And it's kind of the same like when it comes to work stuff. So like in internships, I'm assigned to do interviews, I'm assigned to fix files, and that's where my job ends. If they ask me to do more, if I have the time, I'll do it. But if I don't, I won't feel guilty saying, oh, sorry, I have to do schoolwork right now. So it kind of teaches you the boundaries of it. And it's a very healthy practice, I would say, as a personal super workaholic.
The whole point of all of this is that you have to respect your hours, your hours of rest, your hours of work, your hours of academic life, your hours of internship or other work. That's like the whole gist that you have to think about when you're going to apply to these types of things.
Yeah.
I wish I could try to do those things as well, because usually in my course they don't really what do you call that word? They don't really accept internships because of the schedules that they make. But then it feels nice to do it. But then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Why are you doing it in the first place? Because most of the time, the reason why we aspire to do these kinds of things is because they say it will help us in the future. So yeah.
Well, okay, let's move away from the boring part of being in it, because let's be honest, a big chunk of the reason why you go to the org is because I want to make friends, I want to meet people. So, do you think it's worth it there? Do you think it's worth going to the org entirely for like the social aspect?
For sure, I met some of the long-lasting friendships I made them during the times that I was active in these organizations. Like Carlo's right here. I met Carlo like 4 years ago, and
like
it's been a long time. We're still friends. At least I hope so.
Well, I mean, we're talking to each other. I think we're friends.
Yeah, and I definitely think if you're here to meet people outside of the people you know in your degree program, it's definitely worth it. And second to that, this is cliche, but it's true that learning goes beyond the four corners of your classroom. You'll meet people who will teach you a lot of things that you don't learn or that you don't see in your readings. And for that alone, I think it's worth it. And there are also just some hobbies or skills that you could pick up along the way that really enrich life and make college worth it. So I would recommend it for that alone. But I guess I do agree with Carlo that if you're not the type of person who gets a lot of energy from meeting so many people, you probably don't need to join 5 like I did. Maybe 2 or 3
Maybe
would be
2 or
enough.
3, even just 1. I only ever joined MFM, and I'm completely happy. I've met enough people, in my opinion. I'm very happy with the people I've met.
The one thing I realized about like once you start into like adulting or into college life is that you don't have to meet all the people and be friends with all the people you meet. Like it's good to have like a good support system that you can make, a good set of friends, and then like it will help you for life.
Yeah, there's also that quality over quantity kind of argument to make, that if you spread yourself too thin, you want to meet everybody and befriend them, you're not going to have the time to deepen the relationship further because you're spreading yourself too thin. So maybe that's something people could also keep in mind when they're trying to meet all of these people in college, especially if you're the type of person who wants to get into different groups, cliques even. It's going to be it's a lot of pressure for you to kind of shift personalities every time you want to meet new people. So it would be good to just pay attention to the quality of the relationships that you're making instead of the quantity. Like there's no cap. People won't shame you if you have 70 friends versus 7. Like what matters is that you have people who are there for you, who will meet up with you on a random Friday night if you're crying over your coursework or whatnot. And I think that's what people need to realize on the social aspect of organizations. But when it comes to finding work, I think this is the part where I would advise people to just get all the opportunities that they could stomach or meet. Kasi those will really help you find jobs in the future. Like if there's this fancy event that you could add to your CV and it's an org that made it, and there's like a school attached to that, your the hiring committee will probably think, oh, this person is a go-getter enough. So I think in those aspects, the quantity thing matters more. And I think that's the part where the orgs and the internships kind of prepare you for life outside of college.
Yeah, so the boring part of the org and the boring part of the internships, they play a very important role because practically speaking, we need to know what we're doing when we do start working. And for the social part, like, I like what you said about the balance between quality and quantity, because when you find that balance, you meet people who I think you would probably be friends with for the rest of your life. Like, no matter what happens, no matter where they end up, you can have fun with them and you can talk to them. Like, for me personally, because again, I'm graduating in 2 weeks, so I'm not gonna see a lot of people soon. I've been very like sentimental over so many people. Like, I've started like drafting letters to people because I'm really gonna miss them. And when I started doing that, I was like, wow, it's actually kind of nice that I'll have people that I'll miss, because when you do start going into like adulthood stuff, and I'm feeling it now, is scheduling time with the people you used to see every day. Like, this is something I never realized would be an issue, is I won't have time to see the people I used to see every day, like my org mates, my course mates. I'll have to schedule my like hangouts with them like months in advance, because when you look at the schedules of work life, you'll have a meeting like every other day, you'll have a meeting like every time, and even if you end at 5, you're gonna go through traffic. It's super unrealistic to see them as much as you used to. And I think that's something that people don't realize, is there's a lot of things you're gonna suddenly not necessarily lose, but there's a lot of things that you're suddenly gonna have to like move on from. Like, I'm not gonna see UP in a bit, I'm not gonna see you guys in a bit. So I think that's like my thing that I never expected to have to deal with immediately.
Yeah. I think maybe later I could probably share why I didn't exactly feel those things, because I had a very unique trajectory after college. But it's true that you won't be able to meet the exact same people as much as you did. Even for me, and I try to ask people to meet me almost weekly. The success rate is a lot lower than the amount of times I ask them to. And I think it's just that you become busier because you get more tired after working. You just want to sleep. And I think this is the part where people feel old.
Yeah.
It's not preventable. I'm sorry to kind of break the news to you. It's just that your energy levels aren't going to be the same when you push yourself to earn, or when you push yourself to have to do things that you don't exactly like just so that the day is over. Even if you have more control over your time, that spare time you have, it should go into making yourself feel and look and even just sound healthier, because that's what's going to get you through another day. It's hard living paycheck to paycheck. So you have to ensure that you stay healthy so that you actually have time to enjoy the weekends, for instance.
Yeah, like that's something that I hear a lot from, like, because I have a bunch of friends who are starting to work. They're just like, man, this first year I've just felt completely miserable. All of my extra money has gone into like random like impulse buys, random food, and they're just like, I'm just trying to be happy enough to finish the month. I'm just like, oh, I'm a little scared, but I mean, we get to hang out, right? Yeah, I'll see you in like 3 months. That's the normal cycle I have. Like, I'm gonna meet some friends soon, and I haven't seen them in 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. If you feel that the Boodle culture was bad in college, it gets worse when you're an adult, because you have money. You have money.
Money?
You have money. You earn, right?
buying
So
is
imagine just
mildly
walking
okay.
down the mall and then you see this, let's say, Funko Pop, or like a new Aqua Flask color that you want. In college, you might not have the money to buy that, but when you're earning, you're gonna think, oh, I could probably squeeze that into the budget.
I can spend like 500-700. You know, it'll last me.
Yeah, and it's gonna come back. You're gonna think, babalik naman yan next paycheck. Spoiler alert, it doesn't always. So you're gonna have to be careful about that.
Yeah, but I think you have a bit of a unique experience given your career path. If you can tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, I usually crack jokes about this because I didn't actually leave UP. So right after I graduated in July 2023, so I was 22 years old, I started teaching a class in my home department after. It's a GE. It's called Speech 30. For those who are on the older side of things, it used to be called Com 3, but it's the public speaking and persuasion course. And my current job is that I still teach that course. So I'm an instructor in UP, and in as much as I feel that it's an extension of my undergrad years, it really isn't, because one, the demographics have shifted. The younger kids now are different from what I was like 4 or 5 years ago. And then secondly, it's really different when you're on the other side of the fence. Now you're the one having to deal with late submissions from your students. You're the one having to deal with deadlines that don't get met because you're going to be on the receiving end of like the punishment when you don't turn in grades on time. So there are those things that kind of shifted the point for me, or shifted the ladder a little bit.
It's the power dynamic now you have, because now you are the prof and they're the students.
Yeah, the power dynamic is weird because there are a lot of cases where, one, they're older than I am, and it's happened quite often. And then there are also instances where this is a person you know, this is a friend you made, and then they're suddenly in your class. So what I have to do is I tell them, okay, while you're in my class, we're going to talk to each other like we're always on emails. Like, I had a friend, she enrolled in my class as a meme. Like, she said, I'm sorry, Jco, I enlisted in your class as a meme, but I got it. So what do we do now? So immediately I responded to her, hi, and then comma. So for the rest of the semester, we're going to have to talk professionally and academically only. Do not worry, this will only last for the duration of the semester. And then best regards, Jake. So I had to assert my boundaries because, one, it's going to be difficult for me if I have to prevent myself from laughing every time I see her face. But secondly, it's just a lot easier when you partition your life that way. I think what works for me is when I step into the classroom, I'm a completely different person than I am when I step out of it. I have to be in this zone where nothing matters but the lecture slides and that the students learn from me. That's the thing that I think has helped me survive the past year and a half.
But is it hard to shift into that kind of mask?
It's exhausting. It really is. Because after that, I don't suddenly turn into a tenured professor or anything. Like, I'm the youngest one. I was the youngest one last year. Now I'm not. But it's exhausting because you don't suddenly turn like 40 or 50. You're still 23. You're still 22. And then you don't stop becoming a person when you take on this kind of job. So it's exhausting in that regard. But I guess what matters is that this is what the work asks of you. And it's not different from any other job, really. It's just that it's a people-facing job. The clients happen to be students who are the same age as you, or just a little bit younger than you, and that's reality. You have to face that.
But then, like, there's also the pressure because, like, as you said, there are some students who are older than you. There are some students who are actually your friends.
Yes.
So, like, there's also the pressure of other people saying that, oh, I think I should, like, do more in my life.
Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, you just have to accept the L that it always is like that, regardless of your job. People are going to have an imposter syndrome, and I think it's kind of unique in this job too, because your colleagues are your former professors. Like, this is your thesis advisor suddenly asking you to have dinner at Barcino or whatever, right? Like, it's so jarring, but it's the same for almost every job. It's just that there are a few factors that are different or unique. So there is a lot of pressure in that aspect to do more and go beyond what's asked of you in the course syllabi. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as the students learn and that you're respectful of their boundaries and vice versa.
Yeah, and I think that kind of showed a bit of the other side of adulting. Like, outside of the whole, this is my job, I'm going to earn money. It's I have to exist with my job. I have to exist past my job. I have to exist with the people in my job. It's not all, I'm going to earn money and then it's going to go in my bank account and I have to log it. It's, I have to make friends here. I have to exist with these people. I knew this person before. Wow, that's so crazy. And it's like getting used to the idea that the past really is the past. You're here now. You're going to have to deal with it like that. It's going to feel awkward as hell.
Yeah.
But you're going to deal with it. Yeah. And I think that that's one of the things. There's a lot of scenarios. Like, okay, we actually have like a little game here, which I haven't read. So I actually don't know the answers to this. I'm mildly unprepared. Sorry, guys. But it's just a really quick, like, would you rather with some scenarios, being an adult. So these are very typical, I would say. So the first scenario is, would you rather have a high-paying job that stresses you out a bunch or a job that you're super passionate about but pays you just enough to be alive?
About that, I actually had a similar dilemma right after college. So I'm not gonna name names, but I actually got a different job in college. After college. And then I just had to sign a paper and it would be official. It was a media job, like a reporter job. And I wanted it so badly. It was a childhood dream. Like, I was a kid raised on like Spider-Man and Superman comics. So it felt like a dream come to life. But I had to be careful about like the salary, the benefits, and all of that. And I realized that if I'm going to take this job, I have to be on the clock 24/7. And it's not going to be able to sustain the lifestyle I have. And I'm not going to mince this. Like, gastador akong tao. So that salary wouldn't be enough. And I would be passionate about it, but it would probably kill me in a year if I can't do that. So the answer is that I'd probably get the high-paying job. But like, to kind of be realistic here, it's not actually either or in this scenario. There are some high-paying jobs that could be enjoyable for you. Minsan lang matagal ma-promote in those jobs. So you have to be careful also. Like, read the fine print, guys.
Oh, okay. So there's like a weird middle ground where you can be sort of happy and sort of high paying. Okay, well, it's really not black and white, to be fair, especially given how many jobs there actually are.
Yeah, that makes so much sense now.
Okay, here. Okay, this is specifically for Jco because it's, if you could go back in time and redo your college experience, would you rather do the exact same thing, so exact same path, or go on a completely new path, like let's say your totga or just like things you would do different?
This is interesting because I feel like I ended up where I should be, but I'll probably redo a couple of things in my freshman year just because I came into UP, I was 18, and then when I came back in my fourth year, post-pandemic, kinukuya na ako. So I'd probably do things a little bit differently so I could live that freshman year like I was meant to be. Because my freshman year was composed of taking a lot of responsibilities. Because I was coming off of high school, medyo bida-bida pa. So I carried that over in my first year and I applied for orgs, I took on leadership positions, and I'd probably redo that to kind of dial those down a little bit and actually act like an 18-year-old. Because I feel like I didn't do much of that. But more or less, I'd probably stick to the same path. Maybe be a little bit more selective with a couple of friendships, probably. Just because there are those highly emotional scenarios that did burn me out a little bit in college. But you learn from them.
Okay, so honestly, it's a good thing you don't have any regrets. I think that's something that's always said before you go into college. Like, yeah, live your life without any regrets. Because you don't want to be thinking about that the rest of your life. And I'm happy I'm one of the friends you made.
Yee.
Indeed, our special guest. So, given that you've been adulting or like had a job for a year or two now, how do you stay sane? Aside from, actually, including your whole, I will buy 20 things to make me happy, fill the void with commerce.
Yes, retail therapy.
Yeah, besides retail therapy, I think you have to recognize that nobody really knows what they're doing. So you should be a little kinder to yourself if there are mishaps along the way. Like, there's no guide to being a proper adult. And at the end of the day, you're never going to be as young as you are at that moment. So when you make a mistake, you have to just think, okay, next time I'll just do this differently. And that's how you don't go insane. Because if you're going to be micromanaging or thinking too hard about every single decision you make, you're gonna go crazy. So you have to be kinder to yourself so that you have the headspace to stay sane. And don't feel pressured to be a certain idea of high functioning. I know it's hard given that a lot of social media content is focused on this is how you become an alpha male in an 8 to 5 schedule or whatever.
I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
It's for you guys.
But yeah, it's
You don't
not
need to.
you don't need
that
to.
content in your
But
feed.
regardless if it's being an alpha male or a girl boss or whatever, most people, and I mean this wholeheartedly, you shouldn't feel pressured to have a routine like that because every day is different. Being an adult is not about being a robot. It's about having the time and headspace to be your own person, and you're not going to be able to do that if you're boxing yourself. So I think that's how you stay sane.
Yeah, I think there's a saying that my family, well, actually, my family and my friends like to say a lot. It's when you turn 20, you're not actually like an adult. It's kind of like your age is reset back to 0, but you're a 0-year-old adult because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you don't get mad at a baby when they can't walk, right?
Yeah, I like that. I think I'll steal that.
I think like once you get older, the more you just understand things. The more you understand your parents, the more you understand like your grandparents as well. The fact that like you go like, oh, the reason why they're always angry at you is because there are things that are out of control, and then you have to be more considerate of that, especially when it comes to familial and like relationships, like issues that you have. Like all of us are still learning at the point, and not everybody's perfect at handling it. But then in some way, you just need to be kinder to yourself, and sometimes you have to be also kinder to others as well.
Yeah, I think both of those, they're kind of a package deal. You can only become kind to others if you're also kind to yourself. So I think that's probably the best advice we could like leave.
Okay. So we've actually been painting a bit of a visceral face on being an adult, and we started painting a happy face. So is there anything you want to say to finish the little happy face and make everyone feel a little bit happier, a bit less scared of turning, I guess, into an adult? I was going to say 20, but well, adult is adult.
Well, to be honest, you don't stop liking childish things when you're an adult. I personally have started playing Pokemon again, and the last time I played Pokemon was like high school. So now I started playing it again, and I realized it's still just as fun as it was. So like the small things will really keep you sane and keep you alive and keep you happy. So that's one of the things that people can look forward to. You will have the time to enjoy the things that you felt like you didn't have time for in college or even in high school. And more than that, there are also new friends to make after college. There are people to meet outside the school setting, and they will also enrich your lives just as much as your high school friends did. So there is that. And overall, you learn a lot more than you would have imagined learning. You'll go to places that you never would have dreamt you could go to. You'd go on your first out of the country trip if you haven't yet. These things, I think they really make up the happy side of adulthood.
Yeah, I feel like childish dreams aren't really lost when you're an adult. I'm of the firm belief that the most adult feeling is wanting to be a kid again and doing the things to being a kid again. Like the moment I get a paycheck, I'm gonna go to a store. I'm gonna start buying comic books. I'm gonna be honest. That's one of the first things.
I did that. Exactly the same.
See, exactly.
Yeah, you have to be careful with your first paycheck. Don't go to Green Hills. You're gonna go to Green Hills. Your paycheck is gonna disappear.
Okay, but yeah. So just to wrap up, because we're kind of way over time, guys. Yeah. I'm so sorry to our editor for this episode. This is not intentional. So let's just wrap up. So I think we found that a lot of things that are stereotypically the way they are stereotypical for a reason. Like orgs, people go to orgs for the right reasons. You learn how to do work, you meet people. Internships are much the same. But they're not as black and white as you might think. They're not as depressing, or they're not as wholly perfect as people might think. And there's also a lot of stuff that you just never learn about adulthood until you're there. Like, we all have different things that are uniquely ours or that were never told to us beforehand.
Yeah. I think like the whole advice I could give is that you have to do things scared. Weirdly enough, that's what my younger sibling would tell me. My younger sibling's like, Ate, you have to just do things scared. No matter whatever you feel, just do things scared. Because not everybody knows what they're doing. Your life is not a curated piece of artwork. It's not a gallery. It is something that is a blank canvas and something that is just abstract art that may have intention or no intention at all. It's how you live your life. So yeah.
All right. So I think that we've covered a lot. And I think that hopefully we've made our listeners feel a bit more at peace with being adults. Because I'm under the assumption that maybe they just turned 18, maybe they're turning 20 and they got this sudden existential crisis. Oh no, I'm going to be an adult. Don't worry guys, you have some time. And even when you do turn into adult, you're not going to instantly just like snap turn 50.
Yeah.
You have 30 years to figure out what you want to do. Don't take forever, but you have some time. It's not a rush.
Yeah.
It's not a race, it's a marathon.
But even if it's not a race, you gotta do stuff.
Yeah, marathons still don't finish themselves, guys. You still have to run them.
Yeah.
You can walk, but like
Think of it as a hike. I think it's a hike. Like there's little pressure to finish it at the fastest time, but you have to reach the summit before sundown.
Yeah.
I think that's
because the marathon thing is so it's really
there's still a
so many
limit to a
times.
marathon, right?
Yeah, you're still there is?
Yeah, I think
Oh.
so.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh yeah, there is like a finishing time.
There is, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Sorry, I got off track, but I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, Jco, especially considering it's actually final season and
Yeah,
you
it
have
is.
to check a lot of papers, listen to a bunch of speeches.
Thank you for reminding me, Carlo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to remind you about like more stuff, or are you good?
It's
Like,
okay, I'm good.
okay. There's also your like master's degree.
About that, yeah. I think it's best to cut it here. I'm not gonna stop talking.
Oh no.
All right, so with that, you can follow us on @MaroonFM on Facebook and Instagram.
You can follow me at Estampititas everywhere on IG, Twitter, and such.
Oh, before I forget, also @_MaroonFM on Twitter. And you can follow me on Instagram @Caluag. And do you want to plug yourself as well?
Okay, on Twitter, it's @JCO That's Jco Daniel. And then on Instagram, it's @Jericho Daniel, but there's no A in the Daniel. So there is
All right.
that.
So to all of his students, do not follow those accounts. I don't think he's going to follow you back. And with that, this has been Maroon Jock Carlo.
This is Maroon Jock Dan Stamps.
And this has been Maroon Jock Jco.
And this has been Rough Cut, where we forward through sound.
What's happening all around. See you on the next one, guys.
Thank you for listening.
Yay!
Yo, so like real talk, we were talking about marathons. Do you think you could finish like a marathon or like a race?
I'd rather die. I'm so sorry.
That's not what we're looking for. No, that has nothing to do with the race. You're just talking about the race. You have to start running it first. You just have to get through it, man. How about a hike? Can you do a hike?
No, I can't. I will die from scorpions, bro.
Scorpions? They're not in this country. You just I can't believe you just said I'm gonna die. Why?
Again.